Welcome back to the show, guys. Today we have a special edition of the Bettors Edge, and I will tell you why. We are going down under. We are going to the Australian Open, the final, the men's final. Carlos Alcaraz, Novak Djokovic. As I mentioned, it's the first ever edition of men's tennis on this channel. There's a ton of storylines in this matchup that need to be discussed. First and foremost, let's talk about the youngster, Carlos Alcaraz. A 5-hour marathon of a match in the semifinals against Sasha Zverev, squeaking it out 3-2. Carlos Alcaraz now is trying to become the youngest men's tennis player of all time to win the career Grand Slam. That means winning in Australia. That means winning in Paris at Roland Garros. That means winning at Wimbledon. And obviously, that means winning in Flushing Meadows in New York City at the U.S. Open. What this matchup is going to come down to, guys, in my opinion, is the legs of these competitors. As I just mentioned, Alcaraz coming off a 5-hour marathon. How is his body going to respond? He's obviously the much younger of the two. Not even 23 years of age just yet. He'll be turning 23 in May. His counterpart, Novak Djokovic, we know his story. The greatest champion in men's tennis of all time, 38 years old. He's also coming off of a marathon of a match. The upset he pulled off in the semifinals arguably could be considered his greatest win of all time. He has 24 Grand Slams, and we're talking about a semifinal victory potentially being his biggest achievement. Why do I say that? Jannik Sinner was a minus 1,200 favorite heading into that matchup. There is no question that is the biggest upset of Novak Djokovic's career. So it's not his greatest accomplishment as far as silverware is concerned because he didn't win any silverware in that matchup. But to win that matchup as a plus 800 underdog is absolutely insane. You could argue if he knocks off Sinner and he knocks off Carlos Alcaraz, beating the 2 and 1 seeds in men's tennis, both considered by far the 2 best players in men's tennis today, that this would be the greatest accomplishment of Djokovic's entire career. That, if he wins on Sunday, would be without question. However, how are his legs going to respond? He was on the court for 4 hours against Sasha Zverev. You could see early in the third set, his body was breaking down. For him to find a way, and you could say this about Carlos Alcaraz as well, for Novak to find a way to manage through that matchup physically was a game of chess that he was able to win between the ears. Secondly, for him to manage that game physically, to find a way for him to survive for 4 hours is nothing short of brilliance based on a ton of experience. However, going into that semifinal matchup against Sinner, he had only played 2 sets in about a week. Let's not forget, guys, he had a walkover in the round of 16. He didn't even play. He was getting dog walked by Musetti in the quarterfinals. He's down 2-0. Musetti ends up getting hurt, and he ends up walking over Musetti to advance to the semifinals. So he had a ton of rest heading into that semifinal matchup against Jannik Sinner, and he was able, as I mentioned, to squeak out of that matchup with the victory. That's not going to be the case on Sunday. He just played for 4 hours. How is his body going to respond? It's difficult analyzing this matchup because you have the young, fresh legs and the bull-like mentality of Carlos Alcaraz, and there's going to be a ton of pressure on him going up against Novak Djokovic. And the counter to that, as I just mentioned, is how is Novak's body going to respond? You know what type of mental performance you're going to get from Novak. He's the more experienced, the more accomplished. He's undefeated down under. We haven't even talked about that. 10-0 in finals at the Australian Open. He has an opportunity to put his name up there with Rafa Nadal, Rafa and Roland Garros, and Novak at the Aussie Open. If he's able to win this one. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, we know how Carlos likes to play. He's a physical player. He likes to grind players down. The matchup between Carlos and Zverev was far more physical than the matchup between Sinner and Djokovic. If Carlos is able to make this Grand Slam final a physical battle and wear on Djokovic physically and go after his legs from the first point, it's going to be a very, very difficult evening down under for Novak Djokovic. But if Djokovic can shorten the points, use his brains, make the match as short as possible, even though it's most likely, if it goes in Djokovic's favor, going to be a long match anyways, but if he can shorten it as much as he can and not make it a grind-out dueling affair, Novak at least can give himself a chance to be competitive in this matchup. The advantage that I talked about for Djokovic is going to be between the ears. We've seen Carlos over his young career not really always be there mentally 100%. One thing you can never doubt with Carlos is he's going to give you 100% effort, and he's never going to break completely mentally. But there are lapses in how he plays the game mentally. And sometimes he just doesn't show up between the ears from the word go. If that happens in this final, it's going to give Djokovic a little bit of an edge because you know you're going to get the best of Djokovic between the ears from the very beginning. Men's tennis finally has an intriguing storyline that doesn't just pertain to Alcaraz versus Sinner and a men's final. This is a huge tribute and a huge credit to Novak Djokovic for being able to get this far. It's an incredible storyline for both of these players, regardless of who wins this matchup. I talked about that already. But when it's all said and done, in my opinion, what this matchup is going to come down to, as I talked about in the beginning, is whose legs are going to be fresher. I think Carlos Alcaraz knows he's going to be able to wear down Novak Djokovic, and he should be able to do that rather quickly. I don't think it's going to take very long for Novak's body to start redlining. We saw it early in the third set against Jannik Sinner. I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever if in the second or the third set, Novak's body is already breaking down. In my opinion, the best bet for this matchup, when I'm looking at stylistically the way both these tennis players play, is Carlos Alcaraz minus 1.5 sets, minus 150. I don't see a way in which Novak Djokovic wins 2 sets. I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever if Carlos wins this matchup 3-0. I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever if this ends up being an absolute blowout and physically Novak Djokovic just isn't up for the showdown. However, you can never really count Novak Djokovic out, and you can never question his experience, his mental toughness, and his accomplishments. And because of that, instead of going straight sets winner to Carlos Alcaraz, there is a world in which I can see Novak Djokovic winning 1 set. But I just can't see him squeezing out 2 sets in this game, in this matchup. So with all of that said, give me Carlos Alcaraz minus 1.5 sets in this game to win this and win the men's final, 3-0 or 3-1 at minus 150. One thing that I do want to add in before I get out of here. With Novak Djokovic, at the end of the matchup against Jannik Sinner, Jimmy Connors asked him a question. I don't remember exactly what the question was. He asked him, if you win on Sunday, where does this rank in your career? Something along those lines, I'm paraphrasing. And Novak's response was, this is already a win for me. Alluding to just getting to the finals is already considered a win for Novak Djokovic. And you could see on his face and the way that he was celebrating that victory over Jannik Sinner that he's already done more than he's expected to. And he's playing with house money in the final. Now, he's the greatest champion of all time. You never want to suggest as if he's just happy to be in the final. But that's a man that knows pulling out a victory against Carlos Alcaraz on Sunday is going to be an order that's probably a little bit too tall for what he's able to handle physically at 38 years old. Guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll be back shortly with my Super Bowl picks, previews, and analysis.